Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Last weekend was the Age of Sigmar World Championships in Atlanta, Georgia. They had 143 people show up to play Age of Sigmar. Big tournament, and these were invite-only tickets where you had some of the best players in Age of Sigmar coming together to battle it out. So I wanted to take a look at the Seraphon lists that were at this tournament and how well they did, maybe what made their list work or not work. You can see our placings here. Our top Seraphon player was Bryan Horton at place 35. And then Thomas at 40. And then we had a bit of a gap until we had the last 5 Seraphon players kind of showing up between 129 to 140 placed. So a pretty good spread there. But we did have some lists that placed pretty high. And then some really good players that just, I think, ran across some tough competition. So I did want to highlight that the Seraphon players that showed up here are some of our better Seraphon players. In fact, Bryan and Michael are ranked number 1 and 2. This is the ITC ranking that's shown here. Jose is ranked number 7. Erik comes in at 15. And with the other guys showing up a little bit further down. So these are good Seraphon players. Obviously, they made it here to the World Championship, so they are very good Warhammer players. But just goes to show that this is very good competition. I think one of the problems with kind of our low placings there is that Seraphon is in a bit of a rough shape at the moment. Here's our win rate. This is post-battle scroll. And you can see Seraphon is down here at near the bottom at 42.9% win rate. So Seraphon isn't exactly in the best spot. And this is even with all the price drops that we had in the last battle scroll. So I think they need a little bit more of a bump. Maybe we'll see that come the December balance update. Maybe we can see Seraphon improve a little bit. It may not just be points. Maybe they can update Seraphon with a little bit of a buff. We'll see. All right, but let's get into the list. So the first one, this was Bryan Hortons. He came in 35th place, went 5-3 out of the 8 games at the tournament. And let's take a look at his list. So he's taken Sunclaw Starhost, which allows some pile-in shenanigans and some mortal wounds from your Kroxigor and your Saurus units. And this list looks like a very good board control list, and I think that's probably how he's playing it. He's got Lord Kroak as his general. Kroak is very good about doing mortal wounds at range. You basically can't get within 18 of him and expect to survive very long because he will dump some mortal wounds on you. He's got some Hunters of Huanche with Starstone Bolas, which will reduce an enemy's charge by 1 dice. Very good to nerf their big hammer. Drop that unit in, hit them with some bolas, and then they're not going to be charging you that next turn. So a very good utility piece. We have some Kroxigor, and this is really the only hammer that he has in this list is a reinforced unit of Kroxigor. They can do a lot of damage, especially if they're going into infantry. So Kroxigor is really the only hammer that we have in this list. In this same regiment, we have a Saurus Astrolith Bearer, which will buff up a couple of different units. I say buff, it's not really much of a buff. It's essentially going to give you a little bit of extra control and a 6-up ward for the Kroxigor and the Warriors. And this is a good ability, but that's about all he does. The second regiment is a Sunblood Pack. The Sunblood Pack will actually buff the Kroxigor and the Warriors as well. So those two combined together, the Astrolith and the Sunblood, make a very good combination. You're going to ignore the first wound from the Sunblood's ability on a unit, and then any damage that does get through, you have a chance for a 6-up ward. Now, these aren't great buffs, but this is about as much synergy as we can cobble together right now in Seraphon. So, a good combination. The Sunblood Pack has a couple of different enhancements. The Blood Rage Pendant to give it some extra attacks, and then the Child of the Stars so that when it does die, it can stand back up. So, this little 150 point Sunblood Pack unit ends up being kind of tough to kill, kind of annoying, and it can do some damage now with that loadout. So I like that loadout he's got. We do have 3 independent units of warriors here, small units of just 10 warriors each. These are very good for board control, for catching the enemy's charge so that you can send in your Kroxigor to go delete the unit. A lot of times people underestimate how long 10 warriors can stay on the board. and they won't put quite enough into it, and those warriors will end up outlasting the opponent's enemy, and you'll be able to come hit back with the Krox. The real juice here in this list, though, is that Regiment of Renowned. We have a Caradron Overlord Regiment, the Skyport Profiteers. This comes with one little foot hero and then 2 small units of Thunderers. This is a very good utility piece. It allows you a teleport for, in this list, any of the Warriors, the Sunblood Pack, the Kroxagor, I guess the Hunters of Quanche, if for some reason somehow they were in range, but you've got a guaranteed teleport for 1 command point, which is extremely good. And then your Thunderers can combo up with that to shut off wards. So you have a way to make sure your damage gets through those really hard units to kill. So a good unit. It did go up a little bit in points, but he's managed to still fit into this list. So I think this is a very good list right now. You've got a hammer, you've got good board control, you've got Lord Kroak to do mortal wounds, and your regiment as kind of the techie portion of this list. So Bryan is literally our best player and scored the best at this grand tournament and did very well with an interesting list here. All right, looking at Thomas's list, he got placed 40th, and he went 4-4 with this list here. So he has Shadow Strike Star Host, which allows your 3 skink units to move an extra d6 in your shooting phase. So you end up being very quick this way with any of your skink units. He's also got Lore Celestial Manipulation. Have to pay 20 points for that. Same with Primal. Those cost points now, but it allows you to be... For Celestial Manipulation, you want that for the Run and Charge. That Run and Charge spell is extremely good, especially if you're wanting to be fast. So let's look at his list here. He's got a Slann Starmaster with Incandescent Retresses, just so he can heal up some. We have a reinforced unit of Raptadon Chargers, a couple of units of smaller Raptadon Chargers, so just MSU. And then over in the 2nd Regiment, we have Skink Starseer with Beastmaster, so he can make the cavalry go faster. Kroxagor Warspawn reinforced. Raptadon Chargers reinforced, and some Hunters. And then in a 3rd Regiment, he's got a Skink Star Priest. So everything in this list, other than the Warspawn, is Skink keyworded. So most of these units can take use of that Shadow Strike Star Host. This is a very fast list. Thinking about how you have +1, you have Run and Charge from a spell, then you have this extra d6 movement, and if you take the Asterism for +2 to move, this list will absolutely be anywhere on the board. I think the one downside of this list is it's going to bounce off high armor because you don't have access to anything more than -1 rend. Your Warspawn could get to -2 rend versus monsters, but everything else in this list is -1. And so it's going to be hard to fight through those hard targets. And these Raptadon Chargers are so extremely fragile. They have a 5-up save. And so anything hits them, they're just going to absolutely get deleted. The Warspawn are your heavy hitters, and they'll need to take advantage of some of these skink units to be in combat near them. In this list, that should be extremely easy to do because you have a whole lot of skink keyworded things. So I think some of your synergies here, the Slann is going to help resurrect some of these Chargers when they die. They will die, and hopefully the Slann will bring some of those back. Your Skink Starseer can turn off some wards, so that way your damage can get through a little bit easier. And your Skink Star Priest will allow these Chargers, I think this is one of the units that it's actually good on. The Skink Star Priest will allow the critical wounds to auto wound. So it will help get some of those Raptadon Charger attacks through. So a very interesting list, a very fast list. It's kind of cool to see this one go 4-4. I think there are going to be some hard counters to this, but a lot of people will probably be taken off guard by just how fast this list is. So if you like screaming across the board with a bunch of cavalry, maybe this list is for you. All right, next up we have down at place 129th, we have Kurtis's list. This one was one I was kind of keeping my eye on because it's absurd. It's in a good way. I mean, this is a crazy fun list, but I saw he won his first game, and I was kind of excited. I was hoping he was going to do really well, but looks like he had a rough time the rest of the tournament. This list is nuts. All right. So we have Eternal Star Host. So he's got to teleport there by a wizard. He can teleport a unit around. He's got Celestial Manipulation, so we can do some running and charging. And Aetherwrought Machineries is his lore. This one, he's got a Starseer with Kotal Familiar, so he can make sure and push out one spell that he really wants. He's got 4 spawns of Chotek. Interesting choice. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to make sure that he can get that buff for -1 to the opponent's save. So that's the only thing the spawn of Chotek's good for. It can do a little bit of damage every once in a while. Not very often. It's only got 1 attack. It hits on a 4. But when it does damage, it can subtract the armor save of the opponent by 1. Why that's important is because in his list, he has 120 Skinks. Just an absurd amount of Skinks here. So many Skinks. This is a lot of shooting. I really hope he brought a lot of dice, because these Skinks will pump out. They have 2 shots each. So 120 Skinks will be shooting 240 times, plus the leader. But we'll just 240 times make it nice and easy to calculate. That is a ton of shots. So on paper, I think this list just sounds absolutely devastating. 240 shots, yeah, they're on 4s and 4s. There's no rend, 1 damage. But with spawns of Chotek, you're going to get them to -1 rend. So you're going to get through, what? Theoretically, you should force them to make 60 saves at -1 to rend. That should kill most things. I think the problem with this list is that the range of the Skinks is too short. Skink shooting is only a 12-inch range. Spawn of Chotek shooting is only 16-inch range. These things have very short range as far as shooting goes. I don't even know if it's possible to get this many Skinks within range of something that's 12 inches away from them. So it would be, I imagine it was very difficult to get all these Skinks in, get your buffs off that you wanted. I see what he's trying to do. It may be hard to just get them in range to shoot. You have a teleport. You have, how else could you get these guys in? Well, okay, so his other hero. So he's got a Skink Stars here. He also has a Troglodon, which doesn't really help the Skinks too much, to be honest, but it can make them a little bit harder to kill, maybe if his monster's action goes off. He's a good wizard, so you have a teleport there. But your Stegodon Chief does have Armor Cruncher, which can reduce a save by 1, but that's only in the combat phase. And so if you've got these Skinks in combat, they're even worse in combat than they are in shooting. If these Skinks had like 2 attacks in melee like they used to back in the last edition, then I think this might be a little bit more interesting. The Stegodon Chief does also have Chosen of Quetzal, which will allow you to do some shenanigans on the board with the Skinks. You can pull them out of combat, essentially. So it does have pretty good board control with all these bodies and a bunch of units here. And so maybe that's the play, is just try to wear them down with some terrible shooting and try to play the board. But I guess it just didn't work, so... interesting list. I'm glad to see Kurtis trying that. I was hoping it was going to do really well, and he had discovered something brand new that was going to shake up the Seraphon world. But good try, Kurtis. All right, next up was Bryan at 131. He went 4-4, and he's got a Sunclaw Star Host list. He's got Celestial Manipulation and Morbid Conjuration. Pretty basic spell lores there that we had. Well, we ran that for a long time until they increased the points on them all. So he's still trying to make it worth. I mean, that's 50 points for that spell lore. And it's just rough. Sometimes it feels bad to pay for those. I know they're great spells. It's just sometimes it feels bad to pay 50 points for that when we know our list isn't very strong without good spells. Okay, but he's got a Slann Starmaster as his general with Child of the Stars, so hopefully he doesn't get killed. Can stand back up if he needs to. Kroxagore reinforced. Kroxagore Warspawn reinforced. So I'm looking for some Skinks. Okay, I see some Skinks there. Regiment 2, we've got a Sunblood pack with the Blood Rage pendant to give it extra attacks. And then 2 units of Source Warriors. A Skink Starseer, some Hunters of Huanche with Dart Pipes. Those are just the cheaper version. and 2 units of Skinks. So in this list, you know, you're going to have probably a unit of these Skinks screening out your war spawn to make sure that they're buffed up. And then you're going to be trying to run and charge your big unit of Krox when a target of opportunity rears its head. So your Source Warriors, your Source Sunblood pack will be kind of playing the board, catching charges, and then you'll hit them with your 2 units of war spawn and Krox. It seems like a pretty good list. Krox, I mean, they're good. Most of the time, they're going to be at -1 rend unless you get infantry for the normal unit or monsters for the war spawn. So it seems like a decent list. Your Slanns will be bringing stuff back. Hopefully, your Skink Starseer will get 5-up ward on both the units of Krox, hopefully in turn 2. If you can play that right and get your wards up on them at the bottom of 2, and then not take the double, let the opponent have it so that your Krox still have that 5-up ward. I think that's kind of the dream of that combination there. So, all right, just ran into some good counters, or you know, maybe dice, but he went 4-4. So good job, Bryan. All right, Jose. He's a good player, Jose. He's up ranked high up there. I've seen him playing in real life a few times. He always does much better than I do. He's got the Ride of Rohirrim. Yes, I like the name of this one. Sunclaw Star Host, Lore of the Primal Jungles. So let's see. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to use that for. Probably just because it's free. Aether Rot Machineries. And all right, we've got a Scourge of Gyran, Source Old Blood on Carnosaur with Incandescent Retrices, Beastmaster, and Armor Cruncher. He's going the full loadout on the Soggy Carno. So we got some heals, we got some extra speed from Beastmaster, and then Armor Cruncher will let you get the opponent's save reduced by 1, which is really good. Especially paired with the 2 units of Aggradon Lancers here, reinforced. Now those should be hitting on, if you're sending them in with the Carno, on -3 rend, essentially, which is really nice. They can do a lot of damage. They really can't take a punch. They should be able to. Don't get me wrong, they should be able to, because that's what they want to do. They want to get into combat and just grind it out so that their rage points keep increasing, and you keep getting more attacks, and they keep getting better and better. And the Carnosaur doesn't let their rage, you know, reset, and your Scar Veteran on Aggradon gets those numbers up quickly. Unfortunately, they don't play very well in that grinding melee game. They usually get killed pretty easily. So I'd like to see them with a little bit better save. But Lancers, they are good. They're a good unit. So in addition to those 2 units of reinforced Aggradon Lancers, we have some Raptadon Chargers. Even if you're not taking it in Shadow Strike, these Raptadon Chargers are still quite efficient for their points cost. They're really fast. They have a lot of attacks. They do really well taking out lighter targets. They'll just have, especially on the charge, they're just going to have so many attacks, and a lot of them are doing 2 damage, so that's always nice. Some Raptadon Hunters. These will buff up your Chargers, but it'll also buff up your Carnosaur. I've played this a few times, and it's kind of fun. Your Raptadon Hunters can do just enough damage to proc your Soggy Carnosaurs. I forget the name of the rule for it, but it's Bloodlust rule, where it gets extra damage when something's injured around it. So you can play those Raptadon Hunters with either of those 2 units, with the Raptadon Chargers or with the Carnosaur. It combos really well with both of them, so I like that. We also have a Skink Starseer, another unit of Raptadon Chargers, and a Saurus Scar Veteran on Aggradon. So, you know, he's got 2 screens here, plus a couple small heroes. You kind of want to wait for that Starseer to get a ward up on the Lancers before you really have your go turn, but sometimes it's not always possible. So, your Raptadon Chargers can be your Alpha Strike, depending on what you do with your Asterism. But I would imagine in this list, his Asterism is probably giving the companion weapons exploding hits. You just got too much companion attacks in this list to try to avoid that Asterism. So I like that one there. All right, next up we have Michael Bernstein at 137. Went 6-2. And I've seen him play this list a couple of different tournaments, a couple different GTs, and he normally does really well with this. So may have had some bad matchups or just a very competitive field, but I'm sure he wasn't expecting to go 6-2. I know Michael's done really well, and he's one of our best players in Seraphon. So here he's got Lord Kroak. Oh, and this is in Sunclaw Star Host. So we got the pile-in shenanigans for our Saurus and Kroxagore. So Lord Kroak, a reinforced Aggradons, reinforced Kroxagore, a Basildon with Ancient Defender, and then a Sunblood pack with Blood Rage and Beastmaster on it. And then our Regiment of Renown is the Caradron Overlords with Thunderers and the hero that can teleport infantry units around. So your Sunblood pack can be teleported just about anywhere. Your Thunderers are going to be teleporting around the board. Your Kroxagore could even teleport if you really didn't needed to. But you're looking for your Thunderers to debuff something, catch a charge, and then send in your Kroxagore type of thing. Your Sunblood pack will be an annoying unit for the opponent, especially when you teleport it into its back lines to kind of hit its juicy underbelly and take out a unit that's trying to hold their back objective or something. The Sunblood pack can be harder to get rid of than what some people think. So a good list that Michael's done well with there, but only ended up going 6-2 on this one. Or 2-6, I'm sorry. All right, last one is Erik's list. And it seems like he probably had a pretty rough start to the tournament here. Went 1-7 with an Eternal Star Host list. We have a Skink Star Priest. I think the Skink is not at the right price points there. It should be 90 points, but let's hope he didn't need that extra 20 points. He's got a Skink Star Priest as General with Codal Familiar and Child of the Stars, so he can get a decent spell off there. Probably the run in charge from Celestial Manipulation is what he'll be aiming for. Raptadon Chargers reinforced, Ripperdactyl Riders reinforced. Interesting, I haven't seen those taken that often, but Ripperdactyl Riders are efficient for the points, but they are just super fragile, even more so than the Raptadon Chargers. They are extremely fast, but they are extremely fragile. Second regiment, we've got Sunblood pack, some smaller units of Kroxagore. Just the regular Kroxagore are pretty decent by themselves, like as a unit of 3. They can usually handle screens, these infantry screens that people put out or put on the flanks to go grab objectives. Those Kroxagore should be able to handle most of those. So I think that's kind of where they excel at. He does have a reinforced unit of Kroxagore Warspawn. So the only Skink stuff that will buff the Warspawn in this list are the Star Priests, the Chargers, and the Ripperdactyls. So I would expect he's probably trying to combo charge the Raptadons and the Warspawn at the same time. That's how I would play it a lot. But if you need to, in a pinch, the Ripperdactyl Riders can come over and charge from pretty much anywhere on the board over to the same spot the Warspawn are, so they're very fast. We also have an Astrolith Bearer to protect those Kroxagore Warspawn, I'd imagine, and then some Source Warriors to grab enemy charges and get objectives. So, an interesting list here. I think your one hammer is the Warspawn. If you can go up against some monsters, and they're going to do extremely well. They might struggle against some of the other heavy hitting units as you're trying to take them off the board, but the Skink units should be able to get into combat with them and make sure they get their damage buff off at least. But they still, against a lot of units, are still only going to be -1 to their rend. So, all right, that's it for the list review. It was a pretty fun championship to watch. There were some games that were streamed online, and those were fun to watch. AOS Coach was commenting on all those, and that was made for a good time. So, all right, that's it for these lists. Good luck out there, guys. We'll see you in the next one.